I had a quickie marriage with a stranger. After getting married, he said he makes a living moving bricks. I told him I sell fish to help with household expenses. Every day, one of us comes home smelling like sweat, the other with a fishy smell, until the much-anticipated auction. My newlywed husband and I were face to face. I held a painting I just won, and he, a diamond necklace he just bought. Urged by my dad, I'd impulsively married a stranger. That night, I slapped the marriage certificate in front of my dad. He, with tears in his eyes, held my mom's photo. Our girl is finally married. Time to get the dowry. The next day, I was presented with an $80 million villa on the outskirts of town, 3 large condos downtown, 2 apartments, and a bunch of priceless treasures. I grinned. Dad, I want to start a company. He held my hand and advised, cover up your wealth first. Observe him. If he's after your money, cut your losses. Got it? That night, I went back home. The apartment complex was older than me. The hallway lights flickered like a horror movie. As soon as I opened the door, a sweaty smell hit me. I looked down and saw work clothes tossed on the floor. I heard a noise and saw a man come out of the bathroom. He just showered, wearing a towel around his waist, showing off a perfect set of abs, with healthy tan skin and no extra fat. My eyes moved up to his face. His features were strong, lips thin and red, and his nose was like a masterpiece carved by a higher power. That face alone made my heart flutter, not to mention his physique and demeanor. My new husband didn't look like someone who moves bricks at all. You're back. Charles looked at me. Those captivating eyes could charm anyone. The right amount of under-eye bags made even looking at a dog seem affectionate. I suppressed my inner commotion, holding up my fish and meat groceries. You worked hard today. I'll cook something nutritious for you. Thanks. We're married. No need to be so formal. He took the groceries and smiled. You're right. It's hard work. Let me get changed. Too bad. Once he changes, no more abs to admire. I headed to the kitchen to cook. After learning from our family chef for half a month, I wouldn't say my cooking's amazing, but it's decent. By the time Charles returned, I prepared 3 dishes and a soup: carrot beef stew, steamed sea bass, stir-fried broccoli, and a light winter melon soup. Charles took a bite and was pleasantly surprised. Your cooking keeps getting better. Of course. When we first got married, I bravely cooked for him, but he ended up drinking a whole jug of water. Later, I seized every chance to learn secretly at home. Those countless hours in the kitchen were worth it. This is my salary for the month. It's yours. Charles handed me a wad of cash from his pocket. I counted over 5,000. Not enough for even a fraction of my skincare products, but I took it anyway, taking out 1,000 for him. He looked puzzled. Why are you giving me money? I checked with my assistant about typical families. Men handed over earnings, wives managed the household, but men also got some spending money. Did I give too little? I pulled out another 500. Is this enough now? Charles chuckled, pushing my hand back. Silly, meals are covered at the worksite, and I don't need much money anyway. Keep it, buy some clothes. I was touched. Despite being poor, he was willing to give me everything. I chose the right man. Eat up. I offered him a big piece of beef. You do physical work every day, eat more. With a meaningful look, he said, I'm not tired. I pretended not to understand. The next morning, he wasn't in bed, but there was breakfast on the table. Charles usually worked all day and occasionally did overtime, so during the day, I had a lot of free time. Dad called. The company is set up. When will you come in as the leader? I beamed. Whenever you want. Dad made his first million selling fish when he was young, then his business skyrocketed. Speaking of, how to describe it, Dad's business monopolizes almost the entire country's water produce, and that doesn't even include international operations. At the company, the general manager led employees in greeting. Hello, Selena. I strutted in like a queen in heels, nodding in acknowledgement. On my first workday, I familiarized myself with the company until 5 p.m. without realizing it. 5 o'clock was when Charles finished work. Just as I was thinking about him, Charles called. Honey, I got off work early. Where are you? I'll pick you up, and we can grab dinner together. I felt a bit tense. Where are you right now? Just left the worksite, waiting for a ride. No rush. I'm selling fish right now. Let's meet directly. You don't have to come pick me up. I hung up. Before getting the marriage license, Charles mentioned he was a bricklayer. He politely asked about my work. To match his job and avoid making him feel a big difference, I said I sold fish. I called my assistant. Get me a set of fishy-smelling clothes. Confusing as it was, my assistant quickly complied and asked, Selena, should the driver bring you or are you driving? Which car? No need. I'm taking the subway. My assistant's mouth opened, forming an O. After dinner, Charles wanted to take me somewhere. Too far for just our feet. Charles opted for a shared bike, raising a brow. Want a ride? Sure. That night, we had a great time, physically and emotionally. Charles continued working at the site, and I went from being a fish seller to Selena at the company. My assistant updated me on my schedule. Selena, you have a dinner meeting at 7 tonight with K-Group CEO. Tonight, Charles said he wouldn't be home, some work issue, and he'd either be busy until midnight or stay over at the simple site accommodation. I said I had something tonight too. He asked, what is it? I made something up. Gotta deliver fish to a fancy hotel. At 7 p.m., I reached my destination, and as soon as I got out of the car, I noticed a familiar figure. It was Charles. He seemed like a different person. He was dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, making him appear tall and sleek, with an air of confidence. His expression was so serious, he was like a totally different Charles from the one I knew. My first thought was, have I got the wrong guy? Why would he be here, dressed to the nines, when he usually works on construction sites? Suddenly, as if sensing something, he looked over. I quickly covered my face. My assistant gave me a puzzled look. Selena, what's going on? Don't call me Selena. Let's use the other door, I whispered, pulling my confused assistant along. But, of course, fate has a way of playing tricks. The more you try to avoid someone, the more likely you are to bump into them. And sure enough, Charles and I ended up face to face at the dinner gathering, staring at each other in surprise. Selena, is that you? I thought you were delivering fish. And you? Weren't you working overtime at the site? We both spoke at the same time, then went quiet. Inside, I was scrambling for an excuse, a flawless one at that. I mean, how could I, a fish seller, show up at a fancy dinner with a designer bag worth tens of thousands and dressed head to toe in stuff worth millions? But then, how did Charles end up here? His outfit alone was worth a fortune, not to mention his watch, which could probably buy a house. Seeing my skeptical look, Charles cleared his throat and said, my boss wasn't feeling well, so he sent me instead. This suit and the watch, they're all his. Just as the awkward silence set in, a waiter came in with wine. I recognized it. It costs a fortune just to take a sip. If Charles were really just here by chance, he wouldn't know about it. I'll handle it. As I picked up the wine, it slipped from my hand and smashed on the ground. Any wine lover would be heartbroken over such a spill, especially with a vintage like this. But instead of focusing on the costly wine, Charles was immediately concerned about me. Are you hurt? He asked, checking my hands, his eyes filled with concern. Be careful next time. I hesitantly asked, but what about the wine? Charles shrugged. It's just a bottle of wine. You can find cheap ones at any supermarket. Relieved, I now believed him being here was pure coincidence. Still, it surprised me that my husband was so trusted by his boss. Charles explained, back at the construction site, I helped my boss out once, so he treats me a bit different. I nodded, understanding. So, Selena, why are you here? He asked, his eyes bright. I hadn't come up with an excuse yet. Perhaps I should borrow his reason? Actually, it's a bit embarrassing to admit, but I know the company's owner from before. She couldn't make it tonight because of a blind date, so she asked me to fill in. I pointed at my bag. This bag is hers, and the clothes and jewelry too. Charles laughed. Well, lucky us, right? Let's just enjoy the food then. We ordered another bottle of wine. Charles, however, stopped me. Selena, the wine here is really expensive. I grinned. Don't worry, it's all on someone else today. We're just here to eat and drink. Charles blinked playfully. All right then. During dinner, I excused myself to the restroom and called my assistant. I need you to get me an electric scooter, preferably used, and ASAP. After giving all my instructions, I adjusted my outfit and smiled as I returned to the room. Across the room, Charles was putting his phone down. He'd just gotten a call too. Was it from his boss? Charles raised his phone. My boss just called. He said the deal's done, contracts will be sent over tomorrow. Tell your friend it's all good. I never expected my first business deal to go so smoothly. I couldn't hide my grin. She'll be thrilled. Shall we head back? Charles asked. Sure, I nodded. When we reached the entrance, there was a slightly old pink electric scooter waiting. My assistant messaged, Selena, I tried to find one fast. Used scooters are hard to come by, but I bought this one from a young girl, double the price for urgency, even more than a new one. Putting away my phone, I pointed to the scooter in the distance. Want a ride back? I rode my bike, Charles replied with a smile, pointing to a bicycle by the fountain. You rode here on a bicycle? I couldn't believe it. With that suit? Charles looked innocent. Is there a problem? I shook my head, quietly thought to myself, not really, just wondering what your boss would say if his expensive suit got damaged on a bike ride. The next day, true to word, a representative from K Group delivered the contract. The deal was finalized without a hitch. Somehow, my dad heard about it and sent me $1 million. Congrats on sealing your first deal, go buy yourself something nice. I half-heartedly refused while gladly accepting the money. Given the partnership with K Group, I decided to check out their construction sites. As it happened, Charles was working on one. I planned to surprise him with an impromptu visit. I told Charles, thanks to my help the other night, the big deal was secured and a friend offered me a job at their company. Charles gently patted me. That's good. Absolutely. I was tired of the fishy smell anyway. I got my assistant to buy a few affordable outfits and bags, took off my jewelry, and went for the simple look. My assistant didn't get it. Selena, they say clothes make the man and gold adorns the Buddha. Especially in business, if you don't dress to impress or drive something flashy, people might not take you seriously. Why go the opposite way? Because I want to keep my cover, I warned my assistant. When we get to the construction site later, don't act too much like a subordinate. Let's just be natural. My assistant shook her head like crazy. If you can't, I'll dock your bonus. She looked constipated. At the construction site, the sun was blazing. Dust was everywhere, even with watering, it didn't help at all. Thinking how Charles worked in such a harsh environment made my heart ache. I say I love him, but to test his sincerity, I've repeatedly deceived and kept things from him. I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing. Who are you looking for? Asked a worker with a heavy accent. I'm here for Charles. No Charles here, said an older worker, scratching his head, looking puzzled. Are you sure you're in the right place? I frowned. I'm sure. Just as I was about to ask more, a younger worker ran over. Are you out of your mind from the heat? We definitely have a Charles on this site. He's right over there. The young worker gave me a goofy smile. The person you're looking for is over there. He pointed in the distance. As I walked away, I could still hear the older worker's confusion. When did we get a Charles? Shut up. I thought I'd see a Charles covered in dust and drenched in sweat. But no. He was in a hard hat and workwear, directing others. Even in such ugly gear, his tall figure and handsome face were captivating. I breathed a sigh of relief. Honey, Charles turned to me, surprise in his eyes. What are you doing here? Did you forget? My boss had something come up, so she sent me to check on the site. Oh, and this is my colleague Joan. Joan, used to dealing with VIPs, reflexively gave a perfect bow. Hello, nice to meet you. I facepalmed and awkwardly explained Charles's puzzled look. Joan used to live abroad. I gave my assistant a look. Joan nodded. She's right. Got a promotion? I asked Charles. Yeah, I wanted to surprise you with the news. I handed him a food box. Well, here's a surprise too. He murmured. Yeah, a big one. Later that night, after being cozy, Charles held me and said, Selena, maybe we should find a new place. I had been thinking about this for a while. This place is hot in winter, cold in summer, leaks, and isn't soundproof. You'd see roaches every time nature called at night. If my dad knew I lived like this, he'd cry a river. Suddenly, I had an idea. I wanted to tell you about this. I have a friend with lots of places. She said she'd rent us one. It's downtown, but cheap. She gave me a good deal as a favor. Charles was quiet. I got nervous. Our salaries have gone up. We can afford it. Charles looked at me, then sighed. All right, it's up to you. I beamed with joy. So, what were you going to say? Charles forced a smile. My boss offered a cheap apartment too, but since you've planned, I'll cancel. The next day, while Charles was at work, I pretended to call movers. In reality, I tossed anything unnecessary. The cleaning crew finished up our new place. Looking at the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, I finally felt alive. Outside the window was the river. Full view windows. Fully smart home, 3,000 square feet of luxury, high-end decor. I lied to Charles that the rent was just $5 grand. This area, less than $50 grand a month, would be fantasy. That evening, I ordered a feast waiting for Charles. Music, wine, steak, romance. But by 7:30, Charles messaged, saying he'd be late. I got bored and decided to meet the neighbors. In this place, you'd see each other a lot. As they say, good neighbors are better than distant relatives. I rang the doorbell multiple times but got no answer. Just as I was leaving, the cleaning staff came up. Seeing me ring the neighbor's door, they kindly said, looking for them? The owner doesn't stay here, and it's not just this one. He owns 3 below, 2 above, and the penthouse. Rich folks really own too much to live in. Around 8, Charles was back. He suggested a drive after dinner. I laughed. On my scooter or your bicycle? He chuckled. Neither. In the underground garage stood an Aston Martin. I was shocked. Where did this come from? I was familiar with this car. Dad had one too. But how could Charles afford it? No way, it was a rental. But renting this for a night isn't cheap either. It's my boss's. His driver took leave, so I'm filling in. Holding onto it for now. Oh, I murmured, puzzled. His mysterious boss sure treated him well. Let's go for a ride. Sure. Sitting in the passenger seat, watching Charles expertly handle the wheel. In a suit, he looked quite impressive. Like some rich heir, not a construction worker. He glanced at me. Why are you staring? I giggled. Because my husband's handsome. His eyes darkened, full of intense emotion. Riding in a sports car is nothing like being on a scooter. Though both are convertible, that lion-like roar a scooter can't mimic. I sighed contentedly. Ever since marrying Charles, I hadn't cruised in a sports car. Enjoying it? He asked. I squinted, letting the wind tangle my hair. If I could give you a better life someday, villas and sports cars, would you believe me? I opened my eyes to meet his gaze. It was probing, yet sincere. Many would dismiss such dreams, but I felt nothing but joy. Even though we're living in a rented fancy apartment and driving a sports car borrowed from the boss, I'm happy with what I have. I look at him sweetly. He shakes his head, looking at me with affection. Not enough, it's not enough. I don't dig deeper into what he means. A few days later, we're eating street food from a vendor. I didn't used to eat street food much, but since being with Charles, foie gras and caviar don't seem that fancy or delicious anymore. Food is fancy if it makes you happy. While eating, a worn-out middle-aged woman approaches us, showing a board. I glance at it and feel some sympathy. She says her son is seriously ill and needs an urgent surgery, which costs a lot of money, but she's broke. A guy nearby sneers, saying that kind of scam is old now. The vendor also tries to shoo her away. Tears fill her eyes as she looks at us, pleading. Charles stands up, asking, "How much do you need?" We go to the hospital and confirm the woman really has a sick child needing help, but the total for surgery and everything is $500,000. 500,000 is a drop in the bucket for me. I could easily hand it over to save the child's life. But if I do, how do I explain having that money? In the end, we leave, feeling bad. The next day, I tell my assistant to give $500,000 to a woman named Mary. Soon, my assistant informs me, Selena, some kind person already paid them $500,000 and left an extra $300,000 for the child's nutrition. What? Someone beat me to the punch doing a good deed? Who did it? I feel a bit annoyed that someone got there first. I asked, but the person signed a confidentiality agreement, so no info at all. Oh well, whoever paid, it's good the kid got help. I hang up, thinking to share the news with Charles, but then decide against it. I'd have to explain too much. At some point, I drop by home. My dad, acting all mysterious, says, tomorrow night, there's an auction at the Caesar Hotel. I can't make it. Can you go for me? That's it? I'd rather hang out with Charles. But then Charles calls, Selena, my boss wants to socialize tonight, so I might be back late. No problem, you do your thing. I'm meeting friends tonight too, might be late. Alright, have fun. You too, stay safe. After ending the call, I ask my dad, Dad, is this immoral? Lying? One lie needs more lies to cover it up. I feel trapped. The more lies, the harder it is to tell him the truth later. Dad ponders, well, I lied to your mom before. Shocked, I ask him for details. I told her I was a seafood tycoon. Actually, I just ran a fish stall at the market. When she found out, she was mad, but she forgave me. Why? Because love is in the details. Despite being upset, she knew I cared for her, made her feel loved and comfortable. Plus, I made the lie true, though your mom didn't enjoy it for long. He gets a bit emotional. I feel sad too. Mom worked hard with Dad, but they didn't grow old together. Dad, being the tough guy he is, never remarried. He spends nights looking at her pictures. Dad, it's not the same with us. He continues sincerely, then just apologize. Be honest. By the way, I have my eye on a painting up for auction tomorrow. You better win it for me, or we're done as father and daughter. Dad, you switch topics fast. The next evening, I dress up, grab my new purse, and hop into a fancy ride to Caesar Hotel. Entering the venue, my nemesis Lisa approaches. Long time no see. Where have you been digging coal? You're so tan now. I roll my eyes. Lisa and I grew up together. We competed over grades, looks, education, family background. She always lagged behind me. I have tanned a bit since visiting Charles at the construction site frequently. I heard you got married. Why not introduce your husband? Embarrassed by him? She laughs, showing off a massive diamond. I smile. My husband's too excellent and handsome to just meet anyone. Her face twitches slightly as she shifts her attack. I heard your dad finally let you start a company. Bet there's no business. Need help? I keep smiling. Thanks, but I've landed a big deal already. Save your cash for pets and jewelry. Lisa almost cries. Selena, why bully me every time we meet? She's always done this since we were kids. When she can't win an argument, she plays the victim and cries. I ignore her and walk away. She calls out, you're here for the painting, right? Sorry, I've got my sights set on it too. I turn back with a forced smile. Good luck. She seems confidently prepared. I shouldn't underestimate her. The auction starts. After several minor items, the important painting comes up. I bid first. Lisa follows closely. I easily outbid her, but as the bidding climbs, she seems crazed, offering twice my amount. I get nervous. I promised Dad last night I'd win the painting with my own money for his birthday, without touching his funds. Am I about to fail? $80 million once, $80 million twice. The announcer looks at me. $80 million. Wait, $100 million? I impulsively blur out. Lisa looks shocked. Selena, are you crazy? I glare at her. Isn't it you egging me on, inflating the price? Honestly, I regret it once I said it, because my assistant is nearly in tears, getting close to me. Selena, we don't have $100 million right now. All the company's money is tied up in projects. What about my personal account? The assistant wears a long face. Only $50 million. Suddenly, I feel so poor. Me, the only daughter of a seafood tycoon, stuck in this tough spot because of my pride. I'll bid $200 million. A familiar voice interrupts. I turn in shock. Charles, in a sleek black suit, tie perfectly in place, calmly lifting his paddle to bid. I'm stunned, like a deer in headlights. $200 million once, $200 million twice, sold. And just like that, in a moment of hesitation, the painting becomes his private property. And he's not just anyone, he's my husband. But how on earth did he go from working construction to a mysterious millionaire who casually drops $200 million on a painting? Could it be his boss sent him? From the look in his eyes, his presence, his aura, I feel like I've missed something major. Lisa, seeing me frozen, comes over to console me. Well, I didn't get it either, so we're even. Besides, we gave someone else a chance. She adds, that guy's so handsome. Wonder if he's spoken for. Of course, he is. That's me. Here he comes, Lisa whispers excitedly, pinching my arm. I watch stupidly as Charles approaches, looking sharp and collected under the lights. He looks different from his usual, down-to-earth self. Before I even get a word out, he speaks first. Here to sell fish at the auction? Sell fish? What fish? Lisa can't help but comment, since when did you start selling fish, Selena? I mean, your dad's a famous seafood tycoon, but are you actually living it out? Shut it, I mutter. Charles chuckles lightly, but I can tell, there's no amusement in his eyes. Wait, I can explain? I stammer nervously. Sir, would you sign this for me? Your painting's amazing. We're in a stare down when a fanboy approaches Charles with awe. What? I ask. The man beams with pride. He's the CEO of K Group. His granddad was a business leader, but Charles built K Group all on his own. Charles looks uncomfortable. I know why, his secret's out. I cross my arms and smirk. Mind explaining? Weren't you moving bricks at the construction site? Or was it gold bricks? Lisa finally catches on. Wait, you guys are? I turn back with a smile. Yeah, we're married, though not for long. I glance at Charles. Soon, he'll be my ex-husband. At 11 p.m., my dad calls from overseas. Did you get the painting for me? Looking at the man beside me, I whisper back. There was a snag, but don't worry. You'll have it by your birthday. After hanging up, I face Charles directly. Name your price. How about we clarify things first? Charles suggests. Ever seen Mr. and Mrs. Smith? Both are top-notch assassins who hide their identities, but when revealed, chaos erupts, almost tearing their house apart. I won't do that. I'm civilized. With zero humor in my eyes, I say, Charles, I lied, you lied. Let's call it even. He nods, fair enough, but why'd you lie? Why did you? I hit him with 3 questions in a row. You lied about working construction, earning $5 grand monthly, driving for your boss. Turns out, you're your own boss. And you? He retorts, lied about selling fish, filling in for a friend, said we could stay cheap at a big condo downtown. All yours too, right? Silence. Because it's all true. Behind us, Lisa waves her hand. Hey, I've got something to say. Confused, I ask, why are you still here? Lisa, clearly entertained, says, 'cause you two were arguing like there's no tomorrow. So, Charles and I unite temporarily to boot Lisa out of the car. She leaves, grumbling loudly. Calming down, I admit, alright, I'm wrong. I hid my identity to find someone who'd love me, not my money or status. Charles looks at me quietly. And you? Why'd you hide from me? He hesitates. What if I also wanted the same? With a weak smile, I reply, regardless, we can't stay together. Let's end it here. For the painting, name a price. I'll pay up no matter what. I exit the car. Tonight, I didn't get the painting. Lost a husband too. The ride home is heavy on my heart. Lisa calls, buzzing like a mosquito. Selena, what happened? Tell me. Curiosity's killing me. I sigh. Pay $1 million. I'll talk. I will. Spill. You're nuts, I say. After hanging up, I chuckle bitterly. I must be a nutcase, too. Crazy enough to lose my heart. Arriving at the apartment, Charles follows. I'm annoyed. Why are you following me? He snaps back. Following? I'm going to my own place. Your place? He points upstairs. Top floor's mine. So, he's been my neighbor this whole time. Even the housekeeper said he has more homes than he knows what to do with. What a sly fox, hiding this deep. He's not pretending anymore. I recall a past conversation. I said I was moving homes. Seems like he downplayed it back then, too. 2 adults, 2 wealthy adults, pretending to be broke to test true love. It's ridiculous. Charles, I want that painting. Let's make a deal. No way, he says, tight-lipped. Tears almost spill from my eyes. How heartless can he be? He steps closer, looking down at me. Selena, this painting, it's a gift for my future father-in-law. I clench my fists. Then let's hit the civil office and get this divorce done. I declare. Charles's face darkens, jaw tightens. Selena. Charles, I challenge back. Volume-wise, I'm not going to lose. Fine, let's divorce, he says, storming off. Idiot, not taking the elevator. Good luck with those stairs to the top floor. The next morning, I got everything ready and showed up at the civil affairs office. But I waited all morning, and he didn't show. I called him, and he said, sorry, I overslept. I glanced at the time. It was almost noon. The staff were about to go on lunch break. So come over now, and we'll wait until the afternoon. Sure, and let's have a breakup lunch while we're at it. Looking at the fancy lunch in front of me, I sneered. Is your breakup lunch usually like a proposal dinner? Charles nodded, got down on one knee, pulled out a ring, and mimicked a TV show proposal. Selena, this time I'm seriously proposing to you, hoping we can forget the past and start anew, okay? I gave him a sidelong glance. I have a few questions. Answer honestly. He nodded earnestly. Did you really pay for the kid's surgery and all the expenses? He nodded again. I snorted. You're just showing off. I was gonna help too, but you beat me to it. It's just $800K. I can pay more than that. Yeah, I'm going to the hospital later to cover all the kids' future tuition and living expenses. Can't let Charles outdo me. Was our company's cooperation because of me that you signed? Charles shook his head. Initially, I didn't know you were the boss. I just saw the company's development direction and ideas and thought we could work together. I liked what I was hearing. I let a small smile slip, but then quickly suppressed it. Charles, a few days ago, I told my dad that I've been hiding things from you. I didn't know how to tell you the truth. One lie requires countless others to cover up, and with someone you love, you should be open, not deceitful. Charles fell silent. After a while, he said quietly, Selena, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry too, I replied. The next day, Charles knocked on my door. I answered with bedhead hair. What's up? He said, my place has no power. Can I use your bathroom to shower? I crossed my arms, teasing him. Oh, you work on the construction site and you can't even fix a fuse? Are you faking it? Charles didn't get annoyed but looked at me pitifully. I couldn't withstand his puppy eyes. What are you looking at? Never seen a beauty before? I grumbled dryly. He nodded agreeably. Indeed, I haven't. I pretended to close the door, but he blocked it with his foot. Selena, you really don't plan to forgive me? I admit I was wrong. I shouldn't have lied. He shared his story. After hearing it, I felt a bit empathetic. He said that when he was studying abroad, his girlfriend left him because he kept a low profile. After discovering his true identity, she wanted to get back together. From then on, he approached people with skepticism. Truth be told, I wasn't standing on moral high ground either because I lied to him too. I'm the daughter of a seafood tycoon, yet claimed to be a fish seller. He's from a wealthy family, but said he worked on construction. Where's the basic trust between people? But what if? What if we start being honest from now on, and stop deceiving each other? Charles took my hand, his gaze as sticky as caramel, and give ourselves a chance. If you agree, I'll give the painting to your dad. This guy knows how to hit the right spot. In a few days, my dad's birthday was coming up. If he didn't see his gift, he'd probably throw a fit. Shamefully, I nodded. Charles breathed a sigh of relief. After our covers were blown, we stopped pretending. Charles used to wake up at 5 and be ready for work by 6. Now, even at 9, he was still lying next to me, his strong arms holding me tight. I poked him. The sun's already shining. Shouldn't you get to work? He snuggled into my neck, just a bit longer. I scoffed. Back when you were pretending, you got up earlier than a rooster. Charles quickly got up with a pouty face. You're still mad at me, huh? Whatever. I also didn't tell him that I wasn't really waking up early every day to sell fish. Get up and support your wife. He gave me a peck and dashed off the bed before I could hit him. I yelled after him, who needs you to support me? I have a company, my dad's a seafood king. But he just grinned while getting dressed. I still want to take care of you. After breakfast, we headed to the garage together. He drove his Aston Martin. I drove my McLaren. We just compared who had the better sounding car. No drag racing. I shot him a look. So when you were on your bike, how did you dare to race my scooter? At work, my dad called, Sweetie, remember tomorrow's my birthday. And bring your husband. Hearing my silence, he added, Don't worry, our family will treat him well. Being poor isn't a crime, as long as he's good-natured. I replied, Dad, actually there's something I want to tell you. What is it? Just as I was about to speak, my assistant walked in. Selena, there's a Charles here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment. You go ahead. My dad hung up. Let him in. Charles walked in with a bouquet of blue roses, glanced around my office, and teased, So this is where my wife sells fish every day. It's not bad. It's not as glamorous as your office. Not bad at all. Is that a new watch? Must have cost you millions. And your bracelet, isn't that a limited edition? My assistant was practically blinded by our little display of wealth. Why are you here during work? I asked while going through my files. He didn't answer. He just propped his chin and watched me. What are you looking at? My wife looks really captivating while working. His eyes twinkled, and I laughed. You're not bad yourself, very charming while laying bricks. Charles shook his head. Looks like we can't forget about this. But I wasn't actually laying bricks. The construction site is mine, and I visit to work. On my dad's birthday, I took Charles to meet him. Charles handed over a painting, and my dad happily accepted it. My daughter is amazing. I whispered to my dad. I didn't get the painting. Your son-in-law paid $200 million for it. Dad was shocked. Did I hear that right? My son-in-law spent $200 million, and he's supposedly a construction worker? I sighed. Dad, it's because he was moving gold bricks. Once my dad knew Charles had hidden his identity like I did, he earnestly advised, as a man, you need to be transparent. Don't deceive your wife ever again. Now, say it with me. If I lie again, I'll have kids with no buts. Dad, that's harsh. Epilogue. After our identities were revealed, we went back to living normally, but we still joked about it often. Like when I went to the office, Charles would cheekily say, Selling fish again today, huh? I'd roll my eyes. And you? Which site are you laying gold bricks on today? Oh, I'm meeting Lisa for tea. I've got an online meeting tonight. We smiled at each other. Over coffee, Lisa listened to my story. That's it? She asked, looking unsatisfied. I nodded. Yup. Pay up. Lisa sighed. Such a boring story, not worth $1 million. The story isn't, but the storyteller has a different price, I said, smiling at my silly friend. 3 years later, I had twins, a boy and a girl. Charles and I raised them to always tell the truth, no lies. Those who lie swallow 1,000 needles. One day, my preschool-aged son came to us sniffling, "Mom, Dad, I'm doomed. I have to swallow 1,000 needles." "What happened?" we asked. His sister piped up innocently. "He lied to the girl he likes, saying Grandpa sells fish, Mom sells fish, and Dad lays bricks." I face-bombed.